Welcome to Decoding Superhuman. This show is a deep dive into obsessions with health, performance, and how to elevate the human experience. I explore the latest tools, science, and technology with experts in various fields of human optimization. This is your host, Boomer Anderson. Enjoy the journey. All right, so before we get into today's episode, I want to give a shout out to yet another listener leaving a 5-star review on iTunes. Shimaki Schmitzel, and I should really pick names that are easier to pronounce, but I apologize if I got that one wrong, left a review saying, I love the guest Boomer brings in to give a truly holistic lens to being a high performer. The grounded science and techniques are mind-expanding and practical, recommended to anyone or a high achiever looking to up-level their performance. Shimaki, thank you so much for leaving the review. And if I butchered your name and pronunciation, please correct me. Let's get on with today's show. Today's guest is Eric Puro, and I tried my best to give that a Finnish accent, but may have failed. Eric is the co-founder and CEO of Kaapa Health and KÄÄPÄ Biotech, which is a company that uses medicinal mushrooms in ways that I find truly admirable. Today, we get into the benefits of medicinal mushrooms on the immune system, energy, as well as focus. We talk about anything from Chaga to Reishi to mushrooms that I didn't really know had an immune system benefit like Shiitake. All of the show notes for this one, and Eric cites a lot in terms of compounds of interest, can be found at decodingsuperhuman.com/Kaapa. That's KÄÄPÄ. And given what's going on in the world right now, some of those immune system mushrooms may be of interest to you. So head on over to Kaapa Health, that's KÄÄPÄ health.com, and use the code BIOHACKS because Eric is hooking all of our listeners up with a 15% discount on their tinctures, which I've been riding really since I met Eric at the Biohacking Congress, and I feel freaking fantastic. Let's move on with the show, shall we? Eric, welcome to the show, my friend.
Yes, thank you. Really nice to be here. Thanks for hosting.
We're going to go into a lot, and you and I had the pleasure of meeting, at least officially. We probably have met before at Biohacking Congress in London, and we had a fantastic conversation about so many things. Not just related to mushrooms, but just life in general. And I'm glad we're able to continue it here today with the recording button pressed. So hopefully I sound at least intelligent, and we'll get started. Let's get started, shall we?
Yeah, great.
So Eric, your surname is Finnish, but you're not from Finland originally. And in fact, you told me that you had this permaculture farm in Kentucky, and like, how does one go from Kentucky to Finland? Because people in Kentucky, my parents went to UK, not traditionally thought of as going to Finland as their next step.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, my last name is Puro. And that is my grandfather's father came from Finland to the U.S. early 1900s and brought with him our family name, which actually was Purunen. And Purunen maybe was too weird, so they chopped it off and made it Puro, which, funny enough, Puro is actually a very common Finnish last name. Mm-hmm. It means little river. But I guess my connection to Finland growing up was very limited. My father always made a sauna kind of in the basement. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know that it was weird to have naked sauna with your family on Sundays.
Yeah, that's not your typical church experience that I had in the Midwest, right?
No, so that was a bit like, oh, okay, no one else does that. Then, my brother and I, we decided this is maybe too weird for us. And then it became a thing. Okay, well, now it's healthy, so I can do it after football practice or something.
Yeah.
But the connection to Finland never was really there. It was kind of, that's where some family went to. It's where my blood is from. Mm-hmm. And I just went on with my life. And my life is not a clear trajectory of from anywhere to anywhere. But found myself kind of living after I did, let's say, corporate consulting for a while in Chicago. I needed to understand how the world worked more. I felt really somehow just like someone was holding my hand for so long of my life. And I wanted to understand how things actually worked, and went out and wanted to do good. What kind of problems can I solve? How can I use my brain for a better purpose and making lots and lots of money? And that journey just stayed on for about 10 years. I was doing everything from squatting in London, boycotting runways of new airports, helping stop old growth forests from being cut down, to, proactively then building really ecological houses. I did that for a long time. I started a international nonprofit called The Push, which helps people find places to do natural building. It's kind of went between maybe negative, reactionary environmental activism to maybe more positive side of things. And kind of what I landed on was really enjoying connection, finding connection in my life, connection with myself, people, nature, my own body, just like really finding more connection. And that led me to natural building. It led me to permaculture. It led me to finding ways that I could, as a design of my life, interact more with the natural ecosystem. Hunting became foraging, became looking for mushrooms, became wanting to tan hides with the brain of the animal, fire by friction, walking without shoes. I mean, just really deep into that space. And kind of emerging out of that when I had a daughter, going, okay, how can I make some business out of this? And how can I really do something really positive with my life? And permaculture turned into biotech, and biotech turned into the company that I have now. And I think then my journey was really in Kentucky was we had 62 acres of land, which is like 30 some hectares, 3 waterfalls, spring fed. We were bathing in spring water. Just beautiful log house we were building.
Sounds like
really
a
nice
damn
gardens.
Dream right now. It's
yeah,
great.
It was incredible. Just really nice foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. Really supportive community around us of people who are doing permaculture and organic farming, and everyone really pushing each other to do new things. And it was great. And then kind of deciding to make a really big change in my life, and my daughter came. What is being a father? What is my responsibility now to her? Can I be living this lifestyle anymore? How does this work? And that, those thoughts and those decisions led myself to go on a family vacation to Finland, where, my late wife, she was Finnish. So we came here to see her parents and show off our new daughter. And I took my shoes off just one day walking through the forest, and it's this mossy blueberry bushes.
Where in Finland were you?
Nuuksio,
Okay.
right outside Helsinki. And there's a national park there called Nuuksio, and it's the understory in Finland is basically blueberry bushes, wild blueberry bushes, and then moss. And I mean, it's a really, like, you think there's nymphs and little elves and stuff running around everywhere. And I took my shoes off, and I was walking through this ecosystem with lakes around me and moss hanging from the trees. The air is like really crisp, really clean. And I said, my God, this is my home. In Kentucky, one day I almost stepped on 3 poisonous snakes. Doesn't make me feel good to raise a daughter there. I mean, I just don't understand that kind of jungle ecosystem. It just never felt right. I never felt my place was there. I was trying to connect, forcing myself, got here, and it was like, oh, okay, that's Finland. Now I get it. This is really, and then of course, now I've been here 3 years, and just everything that I learned about the health food scene here, there's a lot of really supportive people, and the really strong social system. People here through the government genuinely care about the health, well-being, livelihood of each other. It's just, I feel there's a lot of honor, and for the first time in my life, I feel like really happy to pay taxes, which is such a good feeling to have. Like, just amazing.
And so not very American at all. Like,
absolutely opposite. Yeah.
It's fascinating. So, all right, the company KÄÄPÄ Biotech, right? And so, Kaapa Health. You were one part of this equation, if you will, originally. You were telling me the story. How did it all kind of converge and come together into we'll call it an organism, the organism it is right now?
Yeah, so I'm one very small part, actually. What there was and there still is in Helsinki is a group there's many of these around the world. They're called myco hack labs.
Mm-hmm.
It's a space where people interested in fungi, trying to solve all the world's problems, connected to companies, connected to universities, just in their own garages. It's a totally social equalizing space. And you can go there and just connect with other people working with fungi. And there's people giving workshops on the medicinal compounds, how to extract them. There's workshops on how to grow glow-in-the-dark mushrooms, how to dye fabric with mushrooms, how to build furniture, make packaging with mushrooms, how to filter water. I mean, everything you can think of. This is the place where people are really experimenting with that space. And I got involved because I was growing, in my summer house, maybe 1,000 meters of mushroom logs outdoors, and just trying to get it to work in Finland, trying to get that. It hasn't been done here. And I met guys who just knew way more than I do about fungi, proper mycologists with proper education, years and years, 8-10 years of experience in this space. And I just started looking like, my God, if we could all, the leader inside of me, what if we all just work together,
Yeah.
and could you do something really incredible? And so I just went around and we had some really nice long discussions with a now good friend of mine, Lorin van Logan Liebenstein, who's actually our head mycologist and head of production. And we had a lot of discussions, little here and there, what we're doing, get to know each other. And he called me up one day and said, Eric, let's inoculate like 40,000 mushroom logs and make a proper medicinal mushroom company. One that's designed to be a medicinal mushroom company from its conception, not one that was doing something else and then moved into the medicinal mushroom space. And I said, yeah, man, 40,000 mushroom logs. That's a lot of work. I don't think you understand it, but let's do that. And then we started picking up more people. Who else do we need to make this work? Well, we need someone who knows the forest industry so we can start growing lots of chaga and it was sales. And we found a really good friend of mine, Henry Locke, who joined on as our forest services director. And then the last kind of piece of the equation was then consumer sales. How do we make a brand? How do we make products? And we took on our current product development export kind of marketing director, Otso Mursula, had a company already selling chaga. And, we divvied up the company ownership and we just said, hey, let's just be really equal here and let's just move forward. And now we've just been like running really fast. We're almost 2 years old as a company. And I'm sitting in our new facility. We just bought 1,300 square meter production space and we're renovating it. It's like a, 650,000 euro project. And the market is really demanding a lot of medicinal mushrooms from us. Let's put it that way.
And we're going to go.
Found something we're doing, right?
We're going to go into that idea of medicinal mushrooms in a second, but just so I understand, and kind of, there are a lot of business people that listen to this podcast. You have the consumer-facing arm. Is the consumer-facing arm relatively new in comparison to some of the other stuff you guys have been doing in the background?
So how our company is sort of divided is we have KÄÄPÄ Biotech, which is our parent company. KÄÄPÄ Biotech is interfacing with researchers. It's crawling papers that are being published about fungi. It's looking for opportunities that we can commercialize a biotech solution to some industry problem. So we work a lot with the forest industry because we're in Finland. It's kind of the easiest place for us to get started. And then we're working also a little bit in the energy space, a little bit in pest control space, this kind of thing. And then we have our it's called Kaapa Forest.
Yeah.
And Kaapa Forest is right now where we are working to help the regeneration of Finnish forest. So how can we actually be getting moving Finland forestry away from clear cutting, more destructive practices toward continuous cover forestry where we're providing proper financial returns and ecologically managing that forest really well. So we have a big forest owner growing network where they're growing us 60, 70, 80,000 kilos of dried chaga mushroom. And this is a very innovative thing that our company has done. So this was kind of one of the first things we started working on was using technology that we've worked with the National Research Institute of Finland to develop, which is these little dowels of inoculated chaga we're putting into live birch trees. So we're cultivating chaga. We're able to define the strain that's being used. And then we're also able to really control what the harvest and production and sustainability and the regeneration around that whole picture. And unlike cultivating chaga where you grow it indoors, maybe on petri dishes or something. This is not what we do.
Okay.
So that's a big involvement in the forest sector. And then we have our consumer division that's relatively new, Kaapa Health, where we're selling a product line of our own products. And then we have Nordic Mushrooms, where we are working with other brands to be an ingredient supplier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So let's go down the medicinal mushroom route, because there are a few people that are listening to this podcast, and I have covered in recent episodes or had discussions around psychedelics. And I just want to differentiate terms before we go down this path. Medicinal mushrooms, do you mind defining that for us versus what, something like a Paul Stamets would talk about when it comes to things like psilocybin and other areas?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, I would qualify psychedelic mushrooms as medicinal as well.
Okay, fair enough.
But I would put everything in that. Oyster mushrooms, maybe not so medicinal. I mean, in a way, everything we eat is medicinal.
Yeah, I guess that is true.
So it's really difficult. I mean, even eating like bread at some level is medicinal. I mean, it's, and so when I think about medicinal mushrooms, what I'm thinking about is there is an active scientific base of researchers that are developing studies on what our company calls compounds of interest from those naturally occurring in those mushrooms. That's what we call medicinal mushrooms. Also functional mushrooms, we refer to it a lot in our consumer division. But that's kind of the space. So, Cordyceps, lion's mane, Chaga, Shiitake, turkey tail, Maitake, Reishi. And those are really the ones that we work with, what we call medicinal.
And these medicinal or functional mushrooms, I've become fascinated by recently because you're just kind of looking for alternatives, right? But also, for some reason, I just gravitate towards an evolutionary lens, and there's more of a chance that I've encountered this or this body has encountered this in past lives through a fungi rather than necessarily through a capsule. And so looking at some of these medicinal mushrooms and their benefit, let's just call a spade here right now, because you and I are both sitting in countries that are kind of, they're in Europe, and there's a lot going on right now with regards to this COVID-19. And, guys, we're not diagnosing or treating disease here, but what we want to do is just open a discussion around how some of these medicinal mushrooms can help with the immune system, because it's that immune system discussion right now. And you walk into a pharmacy and it's sold out of vitamin C. What kind of stuff can we expect to learn, or what medicinal mushrooms should we be looking at here?
Yeah. Very good question. It's maybe the best question we're getting asked right now.
Yeah, I'm sure you got a lot of inbound FAQ right now on your website.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I'm not sure when this will be published, but right now it's like middle March, early March.
I may have to fast track it based on your answer.
But I think it's right now we've got a lot of people concerned about this virus. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like a pneumonia actually imitating, but it's a virus. So a lot of medicine is that we have like, funny enough, it's also fungal, but it's stops with bacteria. It's like this is not working anymore. Yeah. So we have to think in a more holistic way, like vitamin C does. How do we help strengthen our immune system? Mm-hmm. And that's the question. So, we don't have to get hysteric about it. We don't have to freak out. We don't have to have emotional reactions. But I'd say a very calm, collected response to this would say, hey, how much vitamin C do I have in the closet? And I would like people to think, well, if another thing to think about too is what kind of medicinal mushrooms do you have in your closet? Mm-hmm. Because what we're looking at is, basically natural sources where we can be helping strengthen our immune system. And I think, even just like vitamin C, our human species have been using medicinal mushrooms for thousands and thousands, if not millions of years. And I mean, even mammals that are not humans are known to do that. So I think what we have in a way co-evolved with fungi, and more than plants, we're more closely related to fungi than we are plants. So we have a more similar immune system actually to mushrooms than we do to plants. Mm-hmm. And in mushrooms, actually, we have such a very similar immune system. So The only difference was when we kind of split off these evolutionary paths, mushrooms developed a bit more of a chemical-based immune system. And humans, we developed a bit more of cellular structure-based immune system. It's very hard for viruses and bacteria to get into our cells to take over our mitochondria. Whereas in mushrooms, they have a lot of chemical help with that. The very interesting thing is that the chemicals that mushrooms make, we have receptors for that. We can actually use those chemicals. So in a way, we can think about mushrooms as tiny little pharmaceutical factories that are helping to augment or support what kind of compounds we need or what immune system deficiencies we might have. And if we go even deeper to a biohacking space, where I know both of us kind of come from, we're able to if we understand our biology, we understand, like killer cell reaction, right? Like natural killer cells. I mean, we can be using beta glucans or L-ergothyronine. We can be using these kind of compounds to stimulate those effects earlier or later or quicker. So in a way, we if we understand our own cellular biology, we can understand, and we understand the compounds from medicinal mushrooms, we can really think about which ones we should be taking.
So you mentioned...
Maybe that's a long answer, but I could also get into specifics about the compound.
It is a long answer, but I am going to take you down the specifics route because we were talking, you just mentioned beta-glucans and a few other things.
Yeah.
And why don't we go down specifics of these medicinal mushrooms and the properties? Yes. One of the other things that you also said, and this may become a multifolded question. I'm trying not to make it one, but you said we have receptors. And so let's start with the receptors first, because receptor systems is something that I'm fascinated by. The listenership is fascinated by. In terms of the receptors for these mushrooms, is this very similar to like, we have an entire endocannabinoid system, right? Which we didn't really know about until recently. Is it a similar structure to that, or are these...
Actually, one of the most interesting things, and I don't want to go into too many details about this right now, but we're starting what we call knowledge base on endocannabinoid system and medicinal mushroom compounds. And one of the most interesting things is actually how we can be increasing the bioavailability or our reception of these, what we call compounds of interest from mushrooms. Obviously, we're a medicinal mushroom company. And what we're finding is more and more we're starting a knowledge base. We're gathering scientific papers showing a lot of medicinal compounds are activated on that endocannabinoid system. So this is actually a really interesting find that I think we will start to see a lot more development in the medicinal mushroom industry on that kind of train of thought as CBD is becoming more legal.
That's what I was thinking. It's like you're at the early stages of the CBD movement, right? And it's in a way I think that these two industries will become very, very connected, very intimately. So now taking that and going down the route of beta glucans and everything that you just mentioned in terms of benefiting our immune system, can we talk about some of these specific medicinal mushrooms? Like, obviously this doesn't sound like it's a portobello discussion or an oyster discussion, as you mentioned earlier. We're going down a very specific type of mushroom. Can we talk about just a few of those?
Yeah. So I guess that, the most general, how to say this? I think a lot of mushrooms that we grow or we work with, they're really helping the immune system, right? And then some of those mushrooms are doing really strange and weird things also, like cordyceps, or also in a way maybe chaga, or lion's mane. But I would say mainly when and those are the more popular things that we're kind of just now learning about, maybe trendy, but mushrooms in general have been mainly focused on just immune system support. And they're kind of doing that in a big way with beta glucan content. Yep. And basically beta glucans are in pretty much every mushroom, but Maitake might have the most of them. But you'll see, so that's why we're seeing a lot of increased sales in Maitake right now at our company. But there's also Shiitake will have them too. Pretty much almost every mushroom. And what beta glucans are doing they're a simple kind of polysaccharide like glucose, kind of a sugar. They're bypassing our normal gut system. So they're kind of like, in a way, kind of more of a insoluble fiber, and they're getting into our bodies. And what they are doing is they're kind of they're immune modulating, immune stimulating, and they're essentially affecting our natural killer cells. So our natural killer cells have this amazing ability to usually, let's say our cells get a virus gets into our body, and that goes and swims around and gets into one of our cells. Can take maybe 3 days for our natural killer cells to kind of average about 3 days for our natural killer cells to kind of get activated, and then they can really start to go after and even kill those cells that have been contaminated in a way. What the other method is that those cells will sort of self-reflect and mark themselves that that they're not normal. And then there's another mechanism our body can flush that out. And that might be a week, So that's why there's kind of this incubation period we talk about. And then you start to see symptoms, and then your body starts to kick in. You get a fever response, you get coughing, you get whatever it might be to kind of help your body. What we can do is be proactive. If we're taking something like high enough beta glucans with our medicinal mushrooms, we can be activating our killer cell response right away.
Very cool.
And also with macrophagy. So we can also be kind of stimulating our white blood cells to also go out there and really start to work. So it's kind of stimulating our immune system, when it doesn't necessarily would be stimulated itself. So if we know we're putting ourselves in a potential danger zone or exposing ourselves unnecessarily to these kind of virus risks, we know we can kind of biohack that. We can be really boosting our beta glucan intake and forcing our immune system to be really on high alert, if that makes sense.
Makes perfect sense. And so it's Maitake is that the cream of the crop when it comes to production of beta glucans, or is it also should you be doing a variety with shiitake? And I know you mentioned turkey tail earlier, which I all conveniently have sitting here. What is there a recommended path that people should go down, or is variety the best choice here?
I think I would be taking. There's a fine space that I can do about recommending.
And we don't have to go
protocols.
You don't have to recommend a protocol. Let's just say how would shiitake act differently than, let's say, Maitake? All right, guys. So I'm an early riser, and sometimes the benefits of being an early riser are, yes, you get more done. You have a lot more free time in your morning where people don't necessarily bother you because they think you're sleeping, but also you wake up before the sunrise. It's a period of time that for me is very peaceful. But when you want to get work done, but you don't necessarily want to turn on all the lights and disturb your natural circadian rhythms, what do? Well, one of the things that I have running almost consistently in the morning is my SaunaSpace photon light. And that light is something that I meditate in front of. I use to heal myself faster post-workouts. And I sometimes just throw it in front of my face because it feels freaking good. And so the guys over at SaunaSpace are just truly awesome. We've had Brian Richards on the show before. You can see that episode at decodingsuperhuman.com/SaunaSpace. But if you head on over to the show notes for this one, we have a link to SaunaSpace's website, which you can go on and purchase the Photon or any other one of their devices with the code SUPERHUMAN and get yourself a nice little discount. So head on over to saunaspace.com, use the code SUPERHUMAN, or just grab the link in the show notes. Let's go back to the episode.
So shiitake, yeah, that's a good question. So shiitake actually also has beta glucans, but it also has one of the most, for instance, right now at our company, we just gave everybody 2 bottles of shiitake.
Yeah.
So go home, be taking shiitake every day. And the reason we did that was because of what we call compound of interest that's very interesting to us, that's in shiitake, mainly called L-ergothyrein. And if you have show notes and stuff, I can send you more of these studies.
We're going to plow all of this in the show notes, so please give me all the studies.
Absolutely. So L-ergothyrein, it does a lot of interesting stuff. It's kind of an antioxidant, so it's just generally helping your health, helping protect your DNA and RNA. But one of the most interesting things for me is it's kind of protecting your cells. So, and this is only study we have about this is actually in vitro. So I want to be really clear. When we talk about in vitro, what that means is, human cells in a petri dish.
Yeah.
And we don't have actually studies about this in vivo, which is actually our living bodies.
Yeah.
So there's that little bit of disconnection, but a lot of in vitro helps us understand how these compounds work before we would move to a kind of in vitro would help us before we move to in vivo.
Got it.
And with the L-ergothyrene, what we're seeing is it actually is like it's protecting your cellular layer. So it's kind of really, it's like stopping viruses from coming into your cell and hijacking your mitochondria.
Okay.
So you can really help to, it's like an extra armor.
It's like if we're gonna completely nerdy on this, why don't we just go there? It's like having that force field if you're on the Starship Enterprise or something like that, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So Shiitake has that. Turkey tail.
Turkey tail.
Yeah, because turkey tail has the connection there with the gut is fascinating to me. What can we expect from turkey tail?
Yeah, turkey tail, I would say it's interesting. We're seeing quite a large uptake of this as well right now. People are quite flocking toward turkey tail. And I think people just have in their head that turkey tail is really helping with the immune system.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of studies around this, a lot of especially with cancer. Like basically if you're in Japan and you contract breast cancer, they give you turkey tail.
Interesting.
It's the medicine that you're given. That's obviously not the case in the US or Europe, but in Japan, that's the medicine you get.
Mm-hmm.
It's with a certain beta glucan in turkey tail called PSK.
Mm-hmm.
There's also another one called PSP that's also used that way. But it has it has beta glucans
mm-hmm.
mainly. So if we're not looking at actual specific, breast cancer or real specific issues that we have, it also just has a lot of beta glucans.
Okay.
But the mushroom, like I said, the mushroom that we have the most we have beta glucans in is Maitake.
Okay, so when we're looking at Maitake or Shiitake is probably the easiest one for at least me to access it at the grocery store. Let's talk about the delivery here, because are there benefits to me just cooking a bunch of it at home and taking it that way, or because you guys have formulated in these little tinctures, how does it work in terms of effectiveness? Do you lose effectiveness when you cook it?
That's a great question. The answer is kind of yes and no.
Okay. I mean, all great questions have a yes and no answer, right?
Yeah. So basically with turkey, with any of these mushrooms, like Shiitake, Maitake, stuff you might find in the grocery store, there's compounds that are water soluble, which means you eat it and your body could kind of absorb that, break that down, have access to those compounds. And then there's compounds that need a solvent that's much stronger, like alcohol or some ultrasonic extraction methods. And so that's kind of where it depends. It depends what health benefit you're looking for
mm-hmm.
and how that compound needs to be extracted. So, for instance, some of the antioxidant compounds can be extracted just with water.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them also need a stricter solvent like alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
And triterpene compounds almost always need alcohol. A little bit will come out with the water, but it's very, very small. So it depends. I mean, we basically dual extract every mushroom.
Yeah.
So we ensure that the full range of compounds are going to be present in those little bottles.
Mm-hmm.
The next step could be that we're making specific extraction methods for specific use cases.
Of course.
But that gets much harder with health claims and everything else.
Yeah. And look, we're not making health claims here. We're just sharing benefits that have been seen in literature, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So the immune system modulators or regulators or whatever you want to call them are fascinating to me. Can we talk a little bit about Chaga? Because the whole idea of 40,000 was it 40,000 logs of Chaga? Is how you guys got started, or was it 40,000 just I guess you can say 40,000 trees full of mushrooms? How did you guys get started again? Well, remind me of that.
We had Lorraine called me up and said, let's do like 40,000 logs of mushrooms in a farm.
Mm-hmm.
We ended up not doing 40,000. I think we did 4,000. It's a lot of work.
And how does this all work with everyman's right in Finland? Because can people just invade and take your mushrooms?
Really good question. So everyman's rights is a very unique thing to Finland,
mm-hmm.
Which is that private property is a loose space here. What is private and what is public? It's not so defined. So if you live in Finland and you're my neighbor, I can walk through your forest. I can eat your berries. I can pick your mushrooms.
Whereas in the U.S., we can shoot you because it's trespassing on site, right?
Smith & Wesson is a security agent.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but I mean, here it's much, it's way more open.
Yeah.
And there's no, the immediate area around your house of your own land, people cannot put tents in, they cannot be in, this kind of thing. But, there's not many people here, and it's a very big country. So a lot of people have, acreage, a couple hectares. And forest, I could go to my neighbor's forest and pitch a tent and, hang out with my kids, pick their berries and eat them and stay the night. So with a mushroom farm, or like what we do with Chaga, are kind of these forests that we cultivate. Anything that's cultivated is not allowed in every man's rights. So even if it's a natural berries that are cultivated in a farm, that's not allowed. So our forest owners who, let's say, kind of join our growing network have that sort of sense of security. But how we grow mushrooms, it really depends. Like Chaga, we grow outdoors on living birch trees in forests around Finland. And with all the rest of the mushrooms, we have actually the European Union's largest outdoor medicinal mushroom farm. This year, we're going to be adding about 10 to 15,000 more logs even to that.
Wow.
And we grow there lots and lots of lion's mane, lots of shiitake, turkey tail, maitake. We had a little success with reishi. We're trying to get more success with reishi, but we're growing kind of as much as we can outdoors. And this is actually a very different thing that our company is doing than most companies. And it's mainly around you look at our mushroom logs out there. Finland has the cleanest ever recorded air, cleanest ever recorded water. It's a very clean environment that's very conducive for very high quality medicinal mushrooms to grow. Are
you working for the immigration service right now and trying to get
please come. Yeah, tervetuloa, as they told me to say. That means welcome. But it's a very unique place to grow medicine outdoors. And it wouldn't be doing this in London, for instance.
Yeah.
But
or Amsterdam.
Or Amsterdam. Yeah. But our mushrooms that we're growing, we have a birch log, and we implant mycelium from certain strains of certain mushrooms.
Yeah.
But then we sit it literally just in piles out in the spruce forest. We're not touching that again. So obviously, other fungi has got in there. A lot of other things are trying to take over eating that log. That's what we want to see. We're not growing these mushrooms indoors with HEPA filtered air. It's a totally clean environment.
Yeah.
We're growing them outdoors in the wild. And, those mushrooms are having to develop those immune enhancing compounds at a larger effect because they're being attacked. They have to survive. So our chaga is the same way. All the mushrooms we grow basically except cordyceps, we're growing outdoors. And that's really helping those mushrooms make more what we call compounds of interest.
Yeah.
So when I see 3 different fungi species on my lion's mane log, I'm going, great. Perfect. It's having to fight to be there.
Beautiful. Compounds of interest, using that phrase that you just had. The compound of interest within, or I guess you can say the property of interest with chaga is that just purely an antioxidant play, or why should I take chaga every morning now that I have your formulation here? But what exactly is going on with the chaga?
I think we could go really deep into lots of compounds of interest that we're looking at.
Yeah.
And what's really, I want to just, before I answer that question, really quickly say there's a biannual. So every 2 years, there's the International Medicinal Mushroom Society's Congress.
Another thing to plow in the show notes. I love it.
Yeah. So this Congress is actually the only space where all the researchers around the world are presenting papers on medicinal compounds from mushrooms. It's the only place. You can go there as a guest. I can go there as a company, but everyone can visit. It's going to be in the EU actually in 2021. I'm on the executive committee planning that Congress.
Where is it? Do you know?
It most likely will be in Serbia.
Okay, cool.
Is the plan right now.
Awesome.
And so that is the place where all this new information comes out. So when I say compounds of interest, part of those are things that are well researched, quite understood, and some of them are, we're doing that work right now. We're learning about this stuff right now, always learning more. But with chaga, specifically compounds of interest that we know are there, that we are, taking it for, are mainly around the antioxidant space. So when we think about how our cells age, we're looking at a lot of, there's of course telomeres that dictate how many times our cells can sort of regrow or kind of start again. But also every time they start again, that sort of, let's call it like the roadmap of how to build itself again is dictated by the DNA. And if that DNA has been damaged by free radicals and holes been punched in there and everything else, well, even though the telomere is still, reproducing and everything else, it's not reproducing very well.
Yeah.
So you're getting a degeneration of your skin, of your eyes, of your, muscles, of your liver, of your heart, everything else all the time that regeneration process has to go, because free radicals kind of just punching holes and stuff as they're flying around. So to me, a regimen of high antioxidants is really important, because I want to live till I'm 150. I want to live till I'm 250, but I don't want to live if I'm just laying around doing nothing.
Yeah.
I want to be like, I still have some hair in my head. I still can play with my kids, my grandkids, whatever it's going to be. I want to have a joy of life. So when I think about that, I look at antioxidants as a really important answer for that. So chaga has the highest antioxidants gram per gram of any substance in the world. I mean, it's on a different level. Like if we're looking, like ORIC is a test done to kind of establish the let's say antioxidant level of a substance in vitro, and that is showing things that we think of as having high antioxidants: acacia berries, blueberries, 2,000, 4,000, right around here. Chaga is maybe 200,000.
Wow!
So it's on a totally different plane. So there's references to chaga mushroom being called the mushroom of immortality.
Yeah.
Culturally, and this is probably the reason why they talk about it that way.
There are two more mushrooms that I want to ask about, but before I go deep into those, sustainability of chaga, or just sustainability of these mushrooms in general. I know your company is very focused on it, but because these compounds are starting to get some light shed on them, and there's starting to be a lot more science plowed into them, some of the companies are getting quite popular. How do we ensure that we're not just going to pillage the earth of these and then go back to trying to create these things in a lab?
Yeah, it's a super good question. And that's, maybe you asked that about chaga because that's it's actually a really big debate in the US right now.
Yeah.
Medicinal mushroom companies in the US are there's a lot of debate around this. There's a lot of consumers asking that question and then answering it, because chaga is, right now, it's a foraged mushroom. That's how you get it. And that's how the chaga you're taking from us is also foraged. Our forest growing network is not going to produce for another 5-6 years, So right now it's all foraged, and how that foraging is done, it depends on the laws of individual countries. So a place that's maybe a bit more relaxed, like Russia, that's the largest supplier of chaga, we might be creating a lot of damage to that ecosystem, most likely, about how the chaga is being done. Countries where, Canada, it's also very difficult to get really in the backcountry there. So, and labor is very expensive, unlike Russia. So it's not happening so much in Canada. US, almost all any thought of commercial foraging chaga is gone. Yeah, it's gone, totally gone.
Yeah.
That was in the 80s. As a response to that, that's why companies like Host Defense or Om Mushrooms, or these kind of Aloha Medicinals, these bigger, older medicinal mushroom companies started growing chaga indoors.
Yeah.
But what's really important to think about is that chaga, by definition, is a canker. It's a reaction that the tree is having to the mycelium of Innotus obliquus. And that creates a chaga. And a chaga is actually 90% wood matter from the birch tree. So it's not exactly a mushroom. It's not exactly a tree. It's chaga.
Yeah.
You can't grow that in the lab. And the FDA actually has very strict labeling requirements on that are going to be enforced, I think, here very soon. So chaga is only grown outdoors on a birch tree. You cannot grow it inside. And that all the studies and everything we have done about it that's all from outdoor grown. It's proper chaga. And what we're doing is we're trying to solve this, potential crisis before it becomes a potential crisis, and start to cultivate it. So that's why we're actually going into those forests. We're inoculating those live birch trees with chaga. Then we will basically be harvesting that chaga, bringing it back and using that as our supply. And those trees that are then left out without chaga, we can be inoculating them with rare and endangered fungal species. They can be, laid down on the ground of that forest to add that nutrition back to that topsoil. So we can actually play a much more non-extractive sort of relationship with the forest than cutting everything down and taking it out for making paper or building supplies.
A symbiotic relationship rather than one of a parasitical relationship, I would guess.
Yeah, exactly. Chaga is parasitic enough.
So I'll save the performance mushrooms for a second. Again, when we're looking at selecting these, you mentioned a couple of companies there, but also like you go out into Whole Foods, for instance, and a lot of the listenership is where you and I came from in the US. And they're saying like, hey, there's certain mushroom companies that we're exposed to, and there's, that seems readily available on my shelves at my local Whole Foods or whatever organic store you go to. How do you evaluate these companies? Because you just hinted at something that I didn't even know. And unless we know how things like chaga are actually grown, or the company comes out and explicitly states certain things, how do you actually start to evaluate where you're buying or where you're sourcing your mushrooms from?
Yeah. This is maybe the most difficult thing right now. And it's not part of our culture. I mean, your parents, they taught you how to look at ground beef and know if it's still good to eat, or smell
if it's brownie, right?
Or look at a carrot, and if it's really flimsy, maybe you don't want to eat it, or what mold looks like on bread. I mean, like part of our culture helps to prepare us for, how to analyze food and make those decisions, and kind of what is medicine and what's not medicine. We don't have a cultural tradition of taking medicinal mushrooms. Most European countries, most Americans, this isn't part of our heritage. Chaga, of course, in Finland is quite part of the heritage, but no other medicinal mushrooms really. So I think we have to this is a very important conversation we're having to help educate people. And there's lots of information on the internet. And I think the advice that I would give is that we can't be so dogmatic about this. We have to look at every single mushroom. We have to understand then what science studies have been done. We have to look at what the raw material that was used for those studies and what the extraction method was done for those studies. And then how we can be knowing if there's any, what compounds will come out from those extraction methods and what we're trying to achieve ourselves. So in a way, it's much more difficult. And I think, there's a lot of potential problems in the industry. 92% of all mushrooms are grown in China right now.
Yeah.
Which, this is a crazy time to be talking about,
even before that, right? It was
for China. Yeah. But even, it's a place that I don't think of as getting, let's say like really healthy health food.
Yeah.
The air quality is not so good. And there's a lot of issues that we're seeing in the organic food space, that there's pesticides being used that we're not even knowing we should be testing for.
So the quality control is
quite bad.
Yeah.
So I think that this is a concern that I would have looking at that. Another concern that I would have is what mushrooms are they using and how are they grown? Is it the mycelium in liquid culture? Is it pure mycelium? Is it myceliated grain? Is it fruiting bodies of mushrooms? And that's kind of more of a technical debate that we have to have. And it's really important because basically mycelium is the living body of the organism. It's like the white little strainy little guys, hyphase, that are kind of making the connection. It's like the living body. It's like the apple tree or something, you would say. And the mushroom itself is only the fruiting body, and like an apple. So it's coming up for a short period of time. It's releasing spores or seeds kind of into the atmosphere, and it's replicating its DNA, again, and giving new life. And basically, all the studies that we have on medicinal compounds have been done on fruiting bodies. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, if you or your listeners would like to come to the International Medicinal Mushroom Society, we're presenting papers on compounds. There's not a single one that I've ever seen there that is using myceliated grain. Mm-hmm. A couple are looking into what might be the medicinal compounds of mycelium on liquid culture, which is a technique we do here also in our laboratory to grow just pure mycelium in a liquid substance that we can drain that liquid and then just have pure mycelium mm-hmm. that we could dry. And that's mainly being done as a cost savings. As an industry, medicinal mushroom industry, can we be getting the same compounds without having to, grow fruiting bodies, which are much more complicated, much more costly to do? It's not being done as, oh my gosh, maybe this is a better product. It's just, can we do this cheaper? Which is, of course, as an industry, a very good question to ask. Can we be providing this medicine to more people? Can we be getting the price point lower? These are all very important questions to ask. But if it's sacrificing quality, then it's not. So not a lot of success has come from that, to be honest. Yeah. And then if we go to a place of myceliated grain, which a lot of major companies in the US are using right now, that myceliated grain, it's essentially tempeh. It's some amount of grain that's kind of wet, inoculated with some mycelium. Mycelium will start to grow on that grain, eat it, and then they just dry that whole block and grind it up and make it into capsules.
So I'm guessing that the effectiveness of that is 1/10, 1/100th of the wild grown stuff.
Yeah, we don't even know if it is effective at all.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, it's hard to say, if it's effective at all. And it's 95% grain, mm-hmm. So you're seeing a lot of just starch.
Yeah. And we have other issues in society with starch. Eric, that was amazing. I'm glad you went through that, because I think just to kind of recap a few points for people. And This is stuff that I think people should need to do with all of their supplements. It's just ask questions. I mean, Eric, you gave some great points there in terms of key points to ask mushroom companies. And most of these companies have customer service. And candidly, and I'm a person who sends a lot of annoying emails and asks a lot of annoying questions, Eric, as you know. But I want to understand the quality control. And one of the red flags for me is if I get some customer service person who A, doesn't answer, or B, doesn't really dodges the question, doesn't give me the answer that I want, etc. And that's just a way for you to understand a little bit more about what's actually going into your body, right?
Yeah.
My friend, go ahead.
No, I just think it's, to be honest, it frustrates me from a really core place, because I think we're not growing potatoes.
Yeah.
We're not growing calories. Like, we are making high value, expensive medicinal mushroom supplements, right? Mm-hmm. Food supplements that people are taking because they have breast cancer. They are looking for high amounts of antioxidants. They've learned about beta glucans. They want beta glucans. They're trying to heal some, like, we have people taking reishi for eczema issues, skin issues. I mean, I've so many success stories I've had for that, because it's not a joke. It's not just potatoes. Nothing wrong with potatoes, but we have a moral responsibility to be creating really high quality, good medicine now. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it's really frustrating to see that ethical standard in my industry is not everyone's on the same page,
Yeah. I hear you. And I really appreciate you guys. In fact, one of the reasons why I wanted you on the show was because of that. But let's talk about reishi, because the next three, and we may have to do these a little bit faster depending on timing, but reishi is something that I've enjoyed pretty much every evening, as some of its adaptogen properties, but it also, it just brings me down a level. In fact, when I was doing a TEDx talk right before going on, or actually like an hour before, it's like, boom, hit the reishi tincture that you guys have. And I felt just like, it was just smooth sailing, right? Which you think about the pressure of a TED talk, that's different. What are, maybe I just blew everything you had to say about reishi, but in terms of reishi, why should people be interested?
Yeah, I think you should be interested because, to me, the the biohacking community is one that's really incredible. I mean, now getting more into this consumer side, we're interacting, much deeper with this community, and I love it because I can sit here and tell you whatever I want to tell you, right? Mm-hmm. And you can believe whatever you want to believe. And to me, the biohacking community is one that, you have the Oura ring, you're checking, does this stuff. If we're saying reishi helps with sleep or helps to calm me down, does it actually do that?
Yeah.
And we're seeing that consistently. We're having people buying it again and again and again and again and again because they're able to actually find and check those metrics and know that it's actually helping them relax, helping them get better sleep. And that to me is incredible. That's better than me telling you what it's going to do. So I think reishi has so many compounds of interest, really incredible things that we're looking at. But it's really stuck as a way to calm down. Mm-hmm. It's a really helping moderate your stress, relax your neurosystem, like just really, really relax after a day of work.
Okay. Let's go on to like the performance kick things up a notch compounds. Lion's Mane and Cordyceps. I'll let you pick whichever one you want to talk about first. I know we've had several conversations about Cordyceps, a little bit less so on Lion's Mane, but floor is yours. Which way do you want to take us?
Yeah, we can talk about Cordyceps.
Yeah, let's go down that route.
Okay, well, I don't know. There's Cordyceps. I guess Cordyceps is a really fun thing because there's 70 or something different species of Cordyceps. Mm-hmm. The only two that basically you hear people talk about are Cordyceps sinensis or Cordyceps militaris. And these were kind of found out, sinensis at least, with herding animals, eating it and then getting more energy. So basically herders in the northern steppe in Tibet, Bhutan, started taking them themselves then and starting to feel these effects. And it became kind of a mainstream part of Chinese traditional medicine, this Cordyceps. So it became a place to be used for depression, low energy, athletic performance, but mainly a way to make you enjoy life more. So, the winter here in Finland is like really, right now that you can see the sun shining in, it's really nice, but
it's going to go down soon.
Yeah, exactly. And in December, maybe you don't see it at all.
Yeah.
So, the ecosystem and the environment here can be quite oppressive in a way. And it's really nice to have these kind of allies that can help us just enjoy life a bit more. Mm-hmm. So Cordyceps is a big one for that. I mean, it's like a helicopter. It takes you to the top of the mountain, drops you off there and goes, yeah, that's how life can be. Mm-hmm. That joy you're feeling, that's what you can feel every day, all the time. It doesn't keep you up there, but you got to figure out how to what changes you need to make in your life to stay that way.
Yeah.
And what it's really helping with on a like kind of chemical basis is a lot of, higher amounts of ATP, more oxygen in your lungs, help to healing your lungs. It's kind of creating more ability to perform. So that oxygen is also getting to your brain, everything else. You're thinking more clearly. You're able to perform, better. And it's used by, now we're selling ours to even the Finnish Olympic team. Mm-hmm. And it's a really nice thing that people are, athletes are seeing that performance, but also people in like you and I who have kind of high demand analytical or conceptual thinking careers. Mm-hmm. So it's to me, it's not something I take every day.
Yeah.
It's something I take when I really need to be performing well. And to me, the extra amount of, I'm kind of like this really energetic dude anyway.
Yeah.
So if I took it all the time, I think my partner would leave me. My a lot of my employees would probably be too sick of me, to continue working anymore. I think I'm like the steam engine. So I take it really sparingly, just when I really feel it's a long day today and I got to get through it.
Mm-hmm. Is there a tolerance issue with any of these? Like whereby you build up tolerance and it no longer works?
I'm sure, but we haven't seen it.
Okay.
I mean, we actually, just to be clear, what we grow is Cordyceps militaris. Mm-hmm. And we have a strain that we found here in Finland. We also grow strains from us around the world. We grow them indoors because militaris, essentially in the natural system, evolved to take over the brains of insects.
Yeah.
And so it's this very, very strange. It's not like we talk about Shiitake, Maitake, these kind of mushrooms. They're these saprobes. They decompose wood. It's a very different kind of mushroom than Chaga, which is kind of this weird, wood and mycelium kind of thing. And then, Cordyceps, which is like this, parasite on insects.
Yeah.
Well, very different kind of mushrooms. But Cordyceps, of course, we have to grow it indoors because the market really requires that we have a vegan substrate.
Gotcha.
Which we do. So it's organic certified and it's vegan. And it's and then to get the mushroom to fruit, we're actually having to shine lots of different LED lights on it at different times. It's a quite intensive process, actually.
Mm-hmm. Last one I want to close out with is lion's mane, which is a compound that's fascinated me for a long time. You see it in stamate stack and all of this stuff, which stamate stack is something completely different. But let's talk about lion's mane and some of these benefits.
Yeah. So lion's mane, it's funny. For the longest time, it's been considered as mainly a gut health, actually. A lot of the studies, a lot of the research around lion's mane was, of course, it tastes amazing. Yeah. It's been culinary mushroom for a long time, but it's really been helping with gut health. So it's just very recent that we've started to understand this kind of nerve growth factors and neurogenesis and how it's kind of stopping this brain degeneration. And of course, I want to say this is all only with rat trials right now. So again, we're not saying that this has been shown in humans, but it's interestingly enough that, of course, people are starting to use it for that reason, including myself. And I think what's incredible is that at age 30, your brain starts to degenerate. You start to lose neurons. You start to, kill off parts of your brain. And this mushroom has been shown in rats, at least, to not only stop that from happening, but to kind of start brain regeneration, which when I start to think about how our bodies look at when we are 100 or 150, again, quality of life. I mean, I want to have a properly functioning brain. I want to have a properly functioning body. To me, this is I don't know anything else that's doing as good of a job with NGFs as, nerve growth factors as like lion's mane.
Mm-hmm. So do you take it every day?
I do just about every day. I mean, with every mushroom, like I take chaga every day, pretty much lion's mane every day, pretty much. And depending on then what else is going on, some other mushrooms. But to me, lion's mane is, I take a break from everything that I do.
Yeah, of course.
Every once in a while, including chaga, just everything. Just so nice to see what happens without it.
Eric, you've been extremely generous with your time, and I'm sure when people listen to this, they're going to force me to bring you back for a round two. Not that I wouldn't love doing it anyway, but I usually like to round things off with a couple of rapid fire questions.
Yep.
And the first one is what's your top trick for enhancing focus?
Top trick for enhancing focus. Okay. Yeah.
You can be you can be as biased as you want here.
Yes, this is such a good question. I mean, it depends on how much time I have.
Yeah.
If I'm do I need to be really top focus? Like, do I have an hour to prepare? Or do I have 10 minutes? If I have an hour to prepare, I'm gonna jump in a frozen lake. In Finland we call it avanto.
Yeah.
And this ice bathing is really, for me, it just centers my body, just brings me right back. Just woof, it's really incredible. But if I have 10 minutes, what I do is I go to Spotify and I put on the psilocybin trials, the soundtrack from the John Hopkins psilocybin trials. And it's this curated 2-3 hour, incredible, such intentionality put into, it's a lot of orchestral music, a lot of classical music. And that takes me to this kind of ephemeral place where I can do really deep thinking or really get involved in what I'm doing.
Such a beautiful answer. What book has significantly, I guess you can say, impacted your life and how you show up and perform in it?
Yeah.
Or shifted your way of thinking, said another way.
Yeah, I would say, oh man, this goes way back to like high school, I would say. And it's funny that the first book, my God, now that I have a minute to think about it, it's so many different titles are coming in. But the first book I thought about was actually like Ayn Rand.
Really? I didn't realize that. It's because I have all of her books here.
Yeah, like Atlas Shrugged. I mean, I think I was in a really funny place in high school, trying to find some sense and meaning of the world, and how to explain how people work, in a way. And I don't know if I believe everything that she talks about in these books, or
I agree. There's certain things I completely disagree with, but I think it's okay.
But it was a really eye-opening book for me.
Yeah.
It was one of, wow, this is a perspective that I'd never heard before.
Well, I'll have to get you down here to Amsterdam. I have a first edition copy of it that somebody gave me as a gift, and it's sitting here. I need to figure out how to preserve it a little bit better than it currently is being preserved. What excites you most about the health world right now?
Just where we can go. Mm-hmm. I mean, I meet folks like, my age, your age, who are heading up biotech companies, heading up the space. The biohacking summit in Helsinki is absolutely incredible place to meet. I mean, everyone I met there was doing the most interesting thing that I've heard about until the next person I talked to.
Yeah.
I think that this is a space that there's a lot of very motivated people to find out answers and apply new technology and new ways of thinking to those things. And it's not, we don't have to think about it in this old way anymore. And right now you have a customer base in the EU and the US, especially, that are willing to pay for food supplements. Yeah. So there's also a revenue model that really can make companies go deeper and find out new things. And it's a really great time to be alive for the health space, for sure.
Where can people find out more about you, what you're up to, and your company? Yeah,
I'm on Instagram, like everybody now. Eric MT Puro, and KÄÄPÄ.com. Kaapa is KAAPA, so KÄÄPÄ.com is our consumer division, and then KÄÄPÄ Biotech.com is our biotech side of things, and just reach out.
And if people want to get some of these tinctures that I've been talking about, you've been talking about, they go to KääÄPÄHealth.com. Is that right?
Correct.
Good. I'll go place an order now before other people decide to listen to this episode and place orders as well. But Eric, thank you so much for this. This has been incredible.
Yeah.
As always, my friend, it's good talking to you. And I really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, thanks.
To all the superhumans listening out there, have an epic day. All right, superhumans, did you enjoy my conversation with Eric? I did head over to KääÄPÄHealth.com and placed a little bit of an order after this episode. And you know what? I actually don't receive any affiliate commission on this. I do believe that they make me stronger, healthier person. And it's why I wanted him to come on the show. Plus, Eric does a really good job of delving out good information, scientific based, that is also helping you select your best mushrooms. Again, head on over to Eric's website, KääÄPÄHealth.com. And if you want the show notes to this one, it's decodingsuperhuman.com/KAAPA. Superhumans, have an epic day, stay healthy, and always choose health.